Hey there. Good morning. Better late than never. Good morning, Hazard, Kentucky. Good morning, Eastern Kentucky. Good morning, America. I hope everyone's day and morning is going outstanding. Of course, I am a little bit late today. I'm hoping that the late days are soon coming to a close. That's what I hope. I hope everyone out there is having an outstanding morning. A rainy morning here in the Birmingham area of Alabama. I got some stuff I want to talk about today. Yeah, I got some stuff I want to talk about today. Let's see who's joining us already. Caitlin Watson. Caitlin, you are amazing. I'm sorry I'm late. Good morning to you. Good morning, Tina Smith. Good morning, everyone out there on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So, yeah, one of those days. Shit, I don't know where to begin, guys. Not exactly banging through the roof with energy this morning because arguing. I guess a lot of it's my fault. I guess, some of it probably is not, but a lot of it's my fault. So anyway, yesterday I was talking about. I did a 2-hour show yesterday. I didn't even know. I thought maybe it was coming in like an hour and 10. So I'm losing track of time talking about all this stuff. What's amazing to me is when Lindsay, she brought me down to the apartment that I'm living in and dropped me off so she could do some errands and stuff like that. I don't know what else she did. She was keeping herself busy. And I know what it was. She was talking to her mom. Lindsay's a mama's girl, She's a mama's girl, and she can't understand. Certainly there was infidelity on her side and on my side. I'm not proud of that at all. I got divorced because I was tired of being a liar and a hypocrite. So that's what happened. And I just want to talk about that a little bit today. I got out of prison in 2011. 2011. At one point, I thought that prison was the absolute worst thing that could ever happen. And it turned out that prison was absolutely one of the best things that could ever happen to me. That could ever happen. Because if I hadn't went, chances are I would have kept on being that conceited, egotistical, lacking in empathy, lacking in sympathy, not really giving a shit about anybody else but himself, me. I like to look back and I like to think that I cared about other people when I was committing crime and before I went to prison. And there are instances when people can point out, yeah, you had a good heart. No, I was very self-centered. Very self-centered. Really only cared about myself. And I think that's the way of most criminals. I mean, most criminals will try to tell you that, well, I care about my family and I care about my community, or I care about God. Or criminals care about themselves. It's a choice. And I say that often. It's never a victim's fault that they are a victim of crime, that they're being victimized. It's always the criminal's fault, because in order for me to steal money, it's an active choice on my part. I have to choose every step of the way to set up, if I'm doing some sort of scam, to set up the scam, to find that potential victim, to then groom that potential victim to get them to trust me. Once they do that, then to get them to send me money for whatever that scam may be, and then finally to cash that scam out. And then that's just 5 active choices right there, but there's a slew of other active choices beyond that. I have to choose to make sure that I'm being safe and secure on my part, that law enforcement doesn't identify me. I have to be able to launder the money out. I have to be able to do all these things. So it's an active choice on the part of the criminal to commit that crime. And because of that, and there's a lot of entitlement that goes along with committing crime, whether you're like Brett Johnson used to be, and I used to steal money from people, or you're like Michael Campbell, he was on there yesterday, and we talked about him being a drug dealer. Whether you're like him, it's an active choice on every criminal's part to victimize that individual. Pedophiles. We talked about Charles Cornett, or Noah Back, or Jeff Campbell. All these pedophiles that are out there. It's an active choice for them. I mean, they choose. Yeah, they may be mentally wired where they're attracted to raping children, which I don't know how you're wired for that. But even with that, if they've got that predisposition, it's still an active choice all the way through to victimize and rape that child. It's an active thing. And I don't care who the victim is. The victim is never to be blamed for the crime that's perpetrated upon them. And I've mentioned this before, of that type of entitlement. In order for me to victimize you, if I'm stealing money from you, or whatever the crime is, the criminal absolutely views or sees that potential victim as less than they are. As less. It's someone that I can prey upon. It's someone that's not as human as I am, or whatever that may be. They see that individual as less than they are. So it's entitlement. It's an active choice. There's a slew of things, and because of that, I don't think that there has ever been or ever will be a good criminal. A criminal who has a good heart. We sometimes see these news stories of someone who is down on their luck. Maybe they've lost their jobs, and we're going to see a lot of that with the economy going the way it is, thanks to a president who has a 31% approval rating right now, who decided to wage war against Iran. And I didn't even think it was possible that Iran would beat the ever-loving dog shit out of the United States. But that is exactly what is happening. Exactly. They've got hundreds of thousands of drones out there. We've got missiles that run several $1 million a piece. Their drones are a couple of $1,000s a piece. And guess what? Those drones are beating the dog shit out of the United States. I never even thought something like that was possible. But because of that, the economy was already going south from Biden and from Trump before that, and whoever the president was before that. I know who it was. There's a whole list of people. Now we've got this guy in office that wants to spend $1 billion fucking on a ballroom when people can't afford to buy a pack of beef bologna. Paying $4 and over $4 a gallon for gasoline. You see people that hit hard times like that, and you'll read these stories of, or you'll hear somebody that, well, I couldn't feed my kids, so I had to shoplift some food. Here's the reality of that. If you get to that point where you have to steal food, yeah, the first time it may be that pack of bologna because you're hungry. Second time, you're going to realize, shit, the penalty is the same regardless. Steak tastes a hell of a lot better than bologna. Let's do that. I'm going to tell you guys something. There's no better taste in the world than that of stolen frozen crab legs. Those things are succulent. I know. because when I was a criminal, I had a deep freezer full of the best crab legs and stone crab claws and filet mignon and all that stuff. Because why buy it if you can steal it? I didn't care about anybody else. I didn't give a shit. I got out in 2011. My dad had helped me escape prison. Nothing to be proud of, but I guess that's the Kentucky way. You know, family sticks together. I hadn't, my mom, back when I was, I think around 10-ish, she had left my dad. We were in Panama City, Florida, and they were going broke. My dad had been a captain in the military, helicopter pilot. Military downsized, and at the same time, my mom was an embarrassment to the military because she fucked everybody. And my dad decides he's going to drop out of the military and go into coal mining. You know, worked for Falcon Coal Company there in Hazard. Worked for Falcon Coal Company back then. The unions were strong back then, but even at that early age for me, I quickly realized the unions weren't there to help the workers. The unions were there to help themselves. And you know, the few months of a stretch that my dad was able to work before they went back on strike, money was there. You know, we ate pretty well. But most of the time when they were on strike, it was unemployment. We learned quickly what food stamps were. And, you know, they decided they were going to get out of Dodge. So my dad, I think I've told you guys that, he had tried to get a position. He had tried to hook up with Tommy Allen Combs, flying dope across the Mexican border, and Tommy ended up having a shootout, and Dad decided not to take part in that. Once Tommy Allen, you know, got killed in that police shootout. Then my dad decides he wants to be a cop down in Miami so that he can come across some drugs and cash. He'd let the cartels keep the drugs. He'd take the cash, and he thought that shit was going to work. And hell, even back then, I was like, Dad, won't they just shoot you? And he's like, no, son, that would never happen. But you could tell the dad, like, well, they might. So he goes down there, and of course, that falls apart. We were broke at that point in time. They start driving back north on I-75, and they both remember they'd had a spring break in Panama City, Florida. That's where we ended up. My dad, the only job he could get was at a 7-Eleven, a midnight clerk. My mom was an LPN, but my mom liked to party. So she got a job as an LPN, midnight shift, and stayed on a few weeks until my dad got settled in with his job, and she quit her job, and she'd just go out partying while my dad was working. That was my mom. And they were going broke. I remember they would, we'd have the water cut off because they couldn't pay the bill. And we'd get out there because, you know, you're close enough to the ocean that it rains about every day. So we'd wait until it got dark. And the address we lived at was 1212 Kentucky Avenue in Lynn Haven, Florida. And we'd get out there once it got dark with pots and pans and everything we could find to catch water so that we could sponge bathe, brush our teeth, stuff like that. So, yeah, we'd have the water cut off because they couldn't pay it. We'd have the electricity cut off because they couldn't pay the bill. And going broke, they started, my dad and my mom, where he was a captain in the military, we lived 3 years in Germany. And they had, while they were there, and the military paid well, you know. While we were over there, my mom and dad, they had all this furniture, just handmade, beautiful stuff, absolutely gorgeous stuff, like handmade grandfather clocks. I mean, just huge pieces, you know. Had this, they went to the best crystal places. So, you know, had all these crystal glasses and dishes and whatnots. And because they were going broke, they started to sell it all, you know. Try to pay some bills, put some food on the table. Tried to sell it on. And what happened was, you know, this is the same time my mom, very abusive person, to my dad, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, Um, very, very, very abusive person. Yeah, I think I told you guys that there was one point, you want to know why I was so late coming to God. There was one point that I think I mentioned this. Me and Denise were playing Atari in my bedroom. I was, I mean, 9, maybe 10. It was young, but playing Atari. My mom yells for us to come into the living room, and my mom and dad always did that. They wouldn't do anything themselves. They'd be laying in the bed. Me and Denise roaming around someplace. They'd yell for us. We'd come in there. Go make me a sandwich, or go make me a soda, lots of ice. So we were like little slaves to them, And me and Denise go in the living room. My mom's got the lights out. She's got candles burning, incense. Cleared the coffee table away. And she's got these 2 kitchen chairs. Not like I said, I probably told you guys this. She's got these 2 dining room chairs facing each other in the living room. She tells me and my sister, sold my soul to Satan, so you and your sister can have a good living, a good life. And we had to prove it to her, And the way we proved it is she'd sit in one chair. Me and Denise take turns sitting in the other. And she would not say anything. We're supposed to keep eye contact and just never blink. We're supposed to blink. She would let Satan come out through her eyes. And we were supposed to think happy Jesus thoughts. I guess, to keep from being possessed, And she would make these just horrible, hate-filled faces while we did that. And that lasted for hours. And that was just part of the, that's just one instant. I start talking about this, and it to me, it's like I'm minimizing, And that's really I use that as an excuse, but the truth of the matter is that why did it take so long for a man to accept God? Certainly part of it. My mom leaves my dad, her granddad, John Harlan Banks. He had died, and when he died, he had like a safe in his house. He had this Winchester rifle. There was only like 19 of them on the planet, and it was extremely expensive rifle. These days, I guess that back then it would go for 25, 30 grand, maybe 60. These days, that rifle would probably go for $500,000. And he had a safe with some money in it. And I remember when he died, somebody, quote, somebody, went in the house and took the rifle, got in the safe, got the money out, and took all that as a man's laying on a slab someplace. And my mom tells my dad she's going to go to the funeral. And my dad's like, okay. And she loads up the vehicle, and she just puts her clothes in it. She doesn't put me and Denise's clothes in it. We were all supposed to be gone a couple of weeks, So she drives me and Denise to Hazard, Kentucky. And we didn't know that was going to be the last time we were going to see our dad for years, for years. But it was. It was. And my mom, again, she liked to party. I talked about, when you talk about those sex rings in Letcher County, that was going on in Perry County. I remember my mom talking about partying with Stephen Tackett. He was a judge back when I was a kid. Partying with him and stuff that he would do, because my mom didn't shield me and my sister from that at all. So, we got to hear all those details about all that. And my life of crime begins because, I was 10-ish, somewhere between 10 and 12, somewhere through there. And my mom would take off and go partying. And what happened was we were living down on Bottom Street Airport Gardens, and Paul, my granddad, he had elevated his house, and underneath of it, he had built these apartments. So my mom's, living in one of those, freeloading really off of my grandfather and her mom, freeloading off that, and she would leave me and Denise for days, just for days at a time. And Paul, I mean, he was kind of nuts, I can look back now and I can laugh about it. But that man, we were allowed to take a bath once a week. And if you're going to take a bath, you don't run a full tub of water. You don't need it. So about 2-3 inches is what you were allowed to bathe in. And, we didn't have any food. My mom would leave us. We didn't have any food in that apartment. So, and if we went to upstairs to try to get something to eat, they just kind of looked down on us. Say something. When you're a child, you don't understand that. You don't understand that that resentment because those people are having to provide for you. But we were kind of looked down on, and we got to the point where we didn't want to go upstairs and ask for anything. Because my grandmother, my mom, like I said, she'd taken us to Kentucky, and we didn't have any clothes, and my grandmother had to take us up to Lexington. That's where we had to go back then. It's Sears or J.C. Penney's, and I remember she bought me and my sister 3 pairs of jeans and like 5 shirts, a pair of shoes, socks, and underwear. And complaining about that, me and Denise couldn't help that. My mom could have, but she chose not to because she was too busy partying. And what happens is my sister, she comes in one day, and Denise says it was a pack of ham. I remember it as pork chops, not that it matters. But she came in and she had shoplifted that. And, I tell it as a joke these days, show me how you did that. So we start stealing food, and I do go over to that Kmart and get that zip-up hoodie off the rack and use that first to steal more groceries, and then to steal, because like I said, that first theft may be a pack of bologna. After that, Katie barred the door. So Kmart became, I got an Atari 2600 and a television and all these toys and all this bullshit they had. And Mom, oblivious because she liked to party, it took her a minute to notice that damn Intellivision gaming system that I was playing on the TV. And she finally asked, "Where'd you get that?" And I don't even remember what I said. We found it. Of course, that was a lie. No one's going to believe that bullshit. Denise literally said, we stole it. Denise was always a better person. Always a better person. I remember I had her on a podcast, and she says that she thought that she always thought that someone would come and save us. I didn't even think about a response. I just immediately said that I knew no one ever would. So my sister tells my mom, we stole that stuff. And my mom, show me how you did that. And she starts running us as those little shoplifters because, and she calls her mom Alverna, teacher at R.W. Combs, to join us as well. And the thing is back then, you take a mom and a grandparent, 2 little young kids running around J.C. Penney's or a mall. Typically, security is not going to pay much attention to that. They're not going to think, well, shit, that's a band of shoplifters. They're not going to think that at all. So they got away with that shit for a while. And I became at a very young age, I became very adept at stealing, at shoplifting. And that whole environment there, my granddad, Paul, I can look back and I can laugh because a lot of those stories are so outlandish. A lot of people wouldn't believe that bullshit that Paul used to chase people around the house with a butcher knife. He wouldn't believe that he waited up one night because there was a mouse in the house, and he's literally laying on the floor in the living room looking into the dining room with a 22 rifle. About 3 o'clock in the morning, you start hearing gunshots because he's shooting that damn mouse. There's a lot of stuff that I can look back and laugh about now. Because if you don't laugh, holy shit, what are you going to do? So they start shoplifting, taking these road trips. They get caught over in Bristol, Kingsport, Fort Henry Thomas Mall or some bullshit was the name of the mall. They got caught because they went in JCPenney's. My grandmother, my mom, and my sister, they go in there and start stealing clothes and jewelry and bullshit like that. They had a B. Dalton bookstore at that mall, and I went in there to steal some books because, shit, I like to read. And we're supposed to meet back. They had an S10 Blazer. Supposed to meet back at the Blazer like at 1 p.m. I still remember that bullshit. Supposed to meet back at the Blazer like 1 p.m. I get my ass back there. They ain't there. So I'm waiting about 30 minutes out there, and I'm like, shit, I got to go in JCPenney's to see where these people are. So I try to hide my books because the doors were locked. Tried to hide my books, my stolen books, under the Blazer. Of course, they found those. And walked into JCPenney's, and as I'm walking in, there were 2 guards in the little entryway there, and I literally hear my name coming over the walkie-talkie of one of the guards. I hear Brett Johnson. I stopped and I was like, Brett Johnson. It's like, yeah. And I was like, and they look at me as they're like, is that you? And I was like, yeah, that's me. So follow me. Take me up to the security room, and literally my mom and grandmother are in one corner, crying their eyes out, holding each other, just weeping uncontrollably. We've never done this before. We're so sorry, blah, 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 blah. My sister is literally as far away as she can get from them, not crying, just this look of absolute disgust on her face. And that, as far as I know, that was the only crime that Denise ever committed. She goes off. She always had anger issues. Even today, she's got these horrible anger issues. Because I guess she thought that someone was going to come and save us. And I knew that no one ever was. So she goes off to be a teacher, a parent, good citizen. Me, I knew no one was ever going to come and save us. So they ended their shoplifting career. I didn't. I kept on with that. But they did other bullshit like her, my grandmother, and my grandmother's sister, Dorothy. They like to get these costume jewelry rings in, and they would take them to trailer parks, and welfare housing, whatever you call that stuff these days. And they would sell that costume jewelry as real, and then try to convince the people. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So they'd rip people off like that. And I started to gather that mindset of understanding how crime and fraud and, how victims operate and what needs to be done. I started to do that at a very early age. And the thing is in that entire environment, I grew up in it. Grew up with not only that criminal and fraud mentality, because it was everyone. They were, from disaster fraud to insurance fraud. I learned how to fake accidents or fake stolen cars. And my mom, I guess she's burned at least 5 houses or trailers down just for the freaking insurance money. I learned how to do that. Saw how trafficking drugs works and growing marijuana and illegally strip mining coal. I mean, you name it, forging documents, you name it. I grew up in that environment and knowing how to do that. And, if you're in Eastern Kentucky, I used to hate with a passion I used to hate with a passion that Eastern Kentucky area. And I guess it's because I associated all of the abuse and everything that was going on, and it wasn't just that, or the Bible story that I told you. It was, my mom would look at me and my sister all the time. I mean, all the time, and tell us how she'd given up her life for us, how she was going to leave and never come back, how we'd find her dead somewhere in a ditch. And, when you're an adult, you know that that's bullshit. But when you're a child, your parents don't lie to you. You just believe it. And that has an effect. I had a weak father. My dad, he was so scared of my mom leaving him that he would, he was not motivated to do much of anything. But if she wanted to commit a crime, he would absolutely co-sign off on that. If she wanted to abuse me or my sister or him, he wouldn't do anything about it. I mean, he literally would not do anything about it except tell her to stop, Carolyn, stop. Why are you doing this? Please stop. But he never, not one time, physically stopped her, did anything to stop the abuse that she put upon me, my sister, or even him. And for a large part of that, he's absolutely to blame. My sister always blamed that man. I'm a very forgiving person. I really am. And he was just as guilty as my mom. He was the only other adult there. And while he was with me and my sister, before my mom left him, he knew what was happening. But he didn't stop it. He didn't love his children enough. He didn't care enough. He wasn't strong enough. Whatever you want to call it. None of that. So I grew up, this guy. I grew up this guy because I was always scared of my mom leaving and never coming back. So with my mom as a child, I would often beg her to let me go with her because I was scared she might not come back. And what happens is, as I become an adult, I'm much the same way towards the women that I loved. I did not want to be without them because I was somewhere inside of me, that child was still there. And I was scared that, if I went to work or something like that, maybe they wouldn't be there when I got back. So crime, for a large, and again, it's a crime of entitlement. It's not like I was a good guy. I wasn't. But crime allowed me to stay at home and make sure everything was okay. That control freak, I couldn't let, anyone else have control. No one's going to come and save me. No one's going to come and do that. It's up to me to do it myself. And come to find out, I've got a shit ton of willpower. I'm willing to do things that most people would never even think about. And I'm narcissistic enough to think I can be successful, and I'm narcissistic and talented enough to be successful, largely, with stuff like that. So, I commit these crimes. I get married to, my first girlfriend was a preacher's daughter, Manus Roberts' daughter, and she was a really good woman, girl, really good. She was, that was a good first girlfriend. It really was. It really was. I can't think of a better one. And I was with her for 5 years. I went to church because her dad was a preacher. I went to church, every Wednesday and Sunday. Learned that book because Manus was the guy. He was Church of Christ, and I don't believe in denominations, but he was Church of Christ, and he believed that if he was saying something up there at the pulpit, that's a small church, but he believed if he was saying something up there at the pulpit, that you had better follow along in that book. And if he got something wrong, he wanted to know about it. He's a good man, really good man. And Christy's mom, Christine, she was like a surrogate mom to me as well. Like I've said in the past, I had people that always took me in under their wing, that trying to help me, guide me, steer me, protect me. Like I keep saying, is a parent's job. Guide, steer, protect, not control, but let that child grow up to be a good, productive human being within those guardrails of guiding, steering, and protecting. And I didn't have that. Took me until I was in my 40s to get that on my own, but even that wasn't on my own because I had so many people that cared about me, that wanted me to turn things around, and somewhere in that mix was a God that I really did not want anything to do with. So I dated her for 5 years, and she realizes that I'm not going to convert to Christianity. Shit, if I was, I would have within that 5-year span, right? So she breaks up with me. And I guess it was time to break up, truthfully. We'd been engaged, but it really wasn't going to do anything. And I loved her and she loved me, but I guess that relationship had pretty much run its course. And I guess she gets married pretty quickly. Shit, I got married pretty quickly after that. I met Susan Campbell. And what happened was I was at Hazard Community College on the extended program. I was at Hazard Community College, and Todd Carter comes in there one day. Like I said, I was conceited, very conceited. Todd comes in there one day and he's like, man, the prettiest girl in the school is right down the hall. And I was like, no shit. And he's like, no, I'm not kidding you, man. Seriously. I was like, let's go see who you think the prettiest girl in school is. So we walked down the hall there, and she's standing there and she's talking to two of these dipshits. And, they're both trying to hit on her at the same time. And me and Todd walk up, and I'm just standing there watching. I'm not saying anything. I had this long ass hair at the time. I thought I was cooler than shit. And standing there, I'm just watching for a couple minutes. Finally, I look over at her and I was like, hey, you want to get away from these idiots? And they stop and they look at me, and one of them's like, what did you just say? And I looked at him, I said, look, what I said is, would she like to get away from idiot number one and idiot number two? And I just looked at him, and I guess that got her right there. And she's like, I think I would. So we start dating, and 6 months later, we're married. Now, the truth of the matter is I shouldn't have married her. She shouldn't have married me. She married me so she could get out of her house. She wanted to escape Hazard. And I married her because, I just wanted somebody to love. And I didn't know who she was, and she didn't know who I was. And we were married for 9 years, and we didn't have a conversation of any weight whatsoever until that end of that 9 years, when I found out she had been cheating on me. She knew I was a criminal, and truth of the matter was, I guess she figured, at least subconsciously, that the only way she could get away, the only way I'd ever break up with her, is if she cheated on me, because I associated that with my mom, and that was like that line in the sand, that Rubicon. Don't cross that. So when that marriage actually falls apart, That was the first time I was driving her from, we were in Charleston, South Carolina, and I was driving her back to her mom in Hazard. And her brother's a cop, Paul Campbell. And I remember that kid. When I remember, he was okay. He turned into an asshole because I was a criminal. Understandable. When you're a criminal, cops can be assholes. When you stop being a criminal, it turns out a lot of cops ain't assholes so much more. Some of them still are. So that was the first real conversation I had with her, was on the drive from Charleston to Hazard, Kentucky. The first in 9 years, the first real conversation. And I forgot what year that was. It was before I went to prison, of course. Well, what happens is I get depressed. Man, do I. I was 34. So it's 2004, 34, 33, 34. And I get depressed in Charleston. I caused it, right? I did. I caused it. Because, she finally realized that, hey, crime's more important to him than I am. And she was right. I've talked before that in addiction, you're always going to choose the addiction over top of any relationship. You can't love anything else but what you're addicted to. And I was addicted to crime because I was good at it. Man, was I good at it. I could, even today, I'm probably top 5 when it comes to being a social engineer. A social engineer, for those who don't know, is a con man. It's a liar, a manipulator, except it's got a tech tangent to it. So that's a social engineer. And I'm probably today, back then, no one was better. And today, this is many years later, on the good side, I'm still easily top 5, easily. And I don't commit crime anymore. I don't even think about it. I don't have any money coming in right now. And I still don't think about committing crime whatsoever. So I guess I've come a long way. But back then, crime was the most important thing in the world to me, and my first marriage failed. And I was a clean-cut criminal. I didn't start drinking until Susan left. And then what happened was I was a big fan of the Big Lebowski. And he always drank those White Russians. So I started drinking White Russians. And I found out I liked those a lot. So that's when I started drinking. And at the same time, we had a house on the water. And I just started getting depressed. Literally just walking around the house in a stupor. And I realized I was getting suicidal. Picked up the phone, called this psychologist, criminal psychologist, because I figured I needed that. Crying on the phone to this woman. She's like, come in today. And I went in and I told her everything about me, who I was online, what I did, everything. And saw her for about 4 months. And she was trying to get me to commit crime, to stop committing crime and go into real estate. And my joke was, shit, is there a difference? But I think she did some good. I think so. And what happened was, like I said, I was a clean-cut guy. I was 34 at that time. Had this brand new Mini Cooper. And I was dressed in these silk clothes and linens, like the beach guys, and Panama hats and all that. Always dressed in that. And I got lonely one night, 34. Got lonely one night and horny one night, wanted to get laid. Had never been to a strip club in my life. I didn't know what that environment was. Not a clue. And started looking online because I figured, hey, I want one where I can get laid. And found one. And walked in and just naive, walked in and I'm the idiot that immediately falls in love with the first, or thinks he falls in love with the first one that he sees. She walks by, I'm like, shit, I got to have that. That first night, I didn't realize, and I got used to the strip club bullshit. Most guys are in there. Those strippers are basically just little psychologists. They're there to listen and be pretty and naked at the same time. and men, they fancy themselves in love with these women, and women make a lot of money from those types of guys. And that first night I went in, and I wasn't used to it. And she walked up to me and, will you buy me a drink? I was like, yeah. And bought her this $25 drink. And I was like, holy shit, what kind of alcohol's in that? None. All right. Then she's like, well, would you like to go in the back and talk? And I was like, yeah, what do we do? And she's like, well, you got to buy a bottle of champagne. So it was a bottle of Corbel, $400. So I go back there, and I didn't drink anything. We just talked, literally just talked about 3 hours, And the whole time we're talking, she's asking me, where do you live? What do you do for work? And she's noticing the watch that I'm wearing and the clothes. Well, what are you driving? Filling up, seeing how much money I got. And so I leave that night. And a week later, I just walked back in. I was like, can I speak to her? And I looked at her and I said, look, I'd like to take you out to lunch or dinner or something if you'd like to do that. And she said, I'd love to. And she gave me the name of a restaurant. It's called Rue de Jean down in Charleston. So I was like, yeah. And it was going to be lunch because she had work of a night, of course. So I go and tell my buddies, got a date with this girl. And they were like, where are you taking her? His name was JC. JC was my buddy. He's like, where are you taking her? I told him, he's like, take your wallet with you. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, man, it's good food. It's going to run you. And it did. It did. I had, my marriage had ended so soon, I didn't realize, you're not supposed to be engaged and get into, have any more relationships until you're through processing that past one, because you're immediately going to associate and try to say you love the new one immediately. And that's exactly what I did. And the damaging thing is she was a stripper. They're kind of fucked up if you didn't know. Kind of fucked up. All men at one point should date a stripper just to know how fucked up a woman can get. And, because the way men treat them and objectify them. But we started to date. I ended up moving her in with me. And she would go off to work. And those days she'd go off to work, typically, she'd call me, 6:30 in the morning, come and get me. I can't drive. So I'd go and get her, and she'd be parked in a parking lot someplace, unable to drive. And that went on for a little while. Meanwhile, I'm this criminal kingpin, top of the food chain. Know more about how to commit cybercrime and help define and invent a lot of the scams and cybercrimes that still go on today. So I was very adept. Not in relationships, though. Very naive. So she did that a few times, and one morning I never in my life went through a woman's purse. Had never. It's always been taboo. That's your personal property. That's your space. I'm not going to do that. I did that. And that's the first time in my life I'd ever seen cocaine. Straws, all that stuff. By that point in time, I'd already moved her in with me. And I remember she was in the bed asleep. And I went in there and I just told her, I told her that one of my cats had turned her purse over and it spilled out. But I told her about the coke and all that. And she started crying. And again, I didn't realize if you have an addiction, you're always going to choose the addiction over top of a relationship. That was me. That was her. So she says, it wasn't mine, or it was just one time, and it was not. She was horrible on it. She goes to work a few more times and continues that same behavior. And what happens is one day I decided I had enough. So I wrote her a letter, and I went and picked her up that morning. I took her to bed, and I left the letter on the pillow, and I tucked her in. And I was like, look, I said, I'm going to Columbia for the day, and you've got a letter here, and I'd appreciate if you read it while I'm gone. And the letter basically said, hey, if you can't stop what you're doing, I don't want you here when I come back. So I came back, and she was still there. And she'd quit her job. She literally quit her job that day. And as far as I know, she didn't do cocaine anymore. She Supplemented it though. So she began drinking extremely heavy. And I'm not a drinker. I mean, I drink every now and then, but I was not, getting drunk. Nah, wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do that at all. Shadow Crew, that group that I ran, that, the precursor, it's basically, you want to know why cybercrime is where it is today, you look at Shadow Crew. That's what you look at. That's the origin of all really modern financial cybercrime that you've got today. And then, your host here on the show, I'm the guy that is responsible for that. That's I'm very, very knowledgeable on the bad side and on the good side these days. So Shadow Crew makes the front cover of Forbes. It's like August of 2004. Who's stealing your identity? And 3 months later, October 26, 2004, United States Secret Service, they arrested 33 people in 6 countries in 6 hours. John Ashcroft was the Attorney General of the United States at that point in time, and I am the only person that was mentioned publicly as getting away. They didn't know my real name. They used my hacker name. That's what they used. So I was the only person mentioned publicly as getting away, and Elizabeth was the woman's name I was with. I was convinced that I loved her. I didn't. I mean, the crime was more important. I would crime more. She didn't know I was a criminal. She thought I was a fraud consultant. That was a joke I told people, I'm a fraud consultant. I just didn't tell them on which side of the fraud equation that I was on. Elizabeth and I had a very rocky relationship. She, because she had been that stripper and I guess being abused, and I found out she was addicted to coke, and not only addicted, but had been prostituting herself to support the habit. And me being that guy, I hadn't learned yet that you can't fix other people. You're lucky if you can fix yourself, Brett. But I thought I could. So I cut off everyone in the world just so I could concentrate on her, make sure she was okay. And I kept telling myself, if you just keep going a little further, just keep going, Brett. It'll work out. She'll love you as you want her to love you, and you'll be together. And it kept going until we got engaged. Wedding date set for February 26th of 2005. I still remember that damn date. I was arrested February 8th of 2005. And she had no idea what I did for a living, that I stole money from people, that I was this, cybercrime godfather. Didn't have a clue. I went to pick up a couple of Tiffany wedding rings for our wedding. And I was paying for it with a counterfeit cashier's check. And I had been doing that for a minute. And it was what's called a controlled delivery. And what that means is I had a drop address where I was having that stuff shipped. It was an apartment complex. And I was casing the complex, making sure everything was going to be all right. I didn't see anything. And I knew the UPS driver was running late that day. So UPS driver pulls up. I get out of at that point I had a Mercedes. I get out of the Mercedes, walk up. You got a package for me? He's like, yeah. He asked for an ID. I show him an ID. He hands me the package. I hand him a cashier's check for, I think, $23,000, something like that. Turn around. There's an FBI agent, Charleston PD guy. And they arrest me. Not only that, but shit, about 60 show up because I knew who they had. About 60 of them show up, take me in for an interview, sit me down. Of course, I'm not saying anything. Sit me down, and about 40 minutes into it, 2 Secret Service officers walk in and take over the investigation. And ultimately what happens is they get me out because I'm supposed to work for them, because I'm that guy. I'm to this day, I'm still probably one of the most knowledgeable people on the planet when it comes to cybercrime and security and identity theft. Still today I'm that. But back then, I was the voice of God. If I said something, it was written in stone. If I said you can deal with this guy, everyone knew he was good to go, and that guy became a very wealthy person. And if I said that guy's not worth dealing with, nobody dealt with him, and he was broke. And if you ripped one of my members off, one of my associates off, I told him that I would tell him, hey, I'll get you to the point where people will look at you funny during the holidays. And I meant it. Well, they knew they got that guy. Secret Service ultimately gets me out to work for them. And I begged Elizabeth to take me back, and she does, because she didn't have anywhere to go either. So we go to Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm working out of the FBI, the Secret Service field office there, about 4 hours a day. And they've got this thing called Camtasia Spectre Pro on a laptop that I'm working on. My laptop's hooked up to a 50-inch plasma monitor on the wall. And it's got an outside line to it. Meanwhile, there are 2 Secret Service agents in the room with me at all times, and a South Carolina law enforcement official. So you got 3 cops in there. And they got Spectre Pro and Camtasia on my machine that's capturing everything. And for the first 2 weeks, if you see me operating online, I get scary good. Back then, I'd have 30 windows open up, and I'd be bouncing around between them all, understanding exactly what's going on. When this Kentucky thing, when I mentioned that I was the best, that they had never seen somebody like me. These bad guys, they hadn't. I'm very skilled at what I do. And back then, I was scary good. And first 2 weeks, Secret Service guys are asking questions, paying attention. They get bored because you got a guy up here that's bouncing around with 15 different conversations, controlling everything. My job was to find people to arrest and also to train Secret Service. And they brought in like Bank of America, they brought in ICE, brought in all these people to learn from me. And so the first 2 weeks, those agents in that South Carolina law, oh God, they're very diligent. They're asking questions, everything else. And after 2 weeks of watching that bullshit over and over for 4 hours a day, they get bored. So what do? They have a machine right next to mine. And instead of doing their job, they start watching porn. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there going, okay, they're capturing all the data every day, but they're putting it all on a DVD. None of it's cataloged at all. Shit, they're not going to go back through any of that. So I literally start committing crime from inside the Secret Service offices with them in the room with me, because I was that egotistical. And that lasted for about 10 months. They find out about it. I ultimately end up going on the run, on a cross-country crime spree, and steal $600,000 in 4 months and make the United States Most Wanted list. Go to Disney World, get arrested there, sent to prison, escaped from prison with my dad's help, arrested again, served out my time. I got out, like I said, in 2011. My dad, I'd taught him how to do tax return identity theft. The reason your tax returns are delayed every single year, you're looking at him. I'm the guy that invented that crime, among many others. Very, very skilled criminal. So I taught my dad how to do that, and I get out of the halfway house after a while, get a job as a taxi driver. My dad's got a bankroll of the stolen money that I taught him how to do that crime. So I'm kind of living off of that, kind of trying to avoid going back into cybercrime for various reasons. Egotistical, sick of it, just various opposing reasons that I did not want to go back into that. And what happens is I get to the point, they tell you when you leave prison, they're like, find something you care about. get a job, chances are you won't recidivate. You won't do it again. Mm-hmm. Couldn't get a job. Now getting out of prison, if you're a drug dealer or something like that, you can get a job. If nothing else, you can sell cars. If you're the guy who knows how to steal everything on the planet, you don't get a job. No one trusts you. You can't sell cars, asshole. So I couldn't get a job. I literally could not. I had a roommate that he was paying half the rent. I was on food stamps, and got to the point that I had a little cat. That's what I cared about. Had a little cat, and I got to the point I had the money to feed my cat and didn't have the money to buy toilet paper. And there was a Dollar General. I was living on Panama City Beach at that point. There was a little house there, duplex. I was paying $700 a month, so my rent was $350. And I'd gotten the furniture for that house because, down on the beach, you'd have those people, they come in for the season. And when they left, every morning, all this furniture would be piled outside for whoever wanted to come and get it would get it. So I was dating this girl at this point, and we went and got furniture for that duplex for me. I had to buy a TV, and my stepmother, my dad's wife, gave me a king-size mattress. So that was the place. I kept that place spick and span, I was very, very happy to have my own place, but I was going broke. And got to the point where I had enough money to feed my cat, but I couldn't buy toilet paper. And went to the Dollar General and bought, his name was Monster. Bought Little Monster some cat food. And on the way out, they had a kiosk there that had toilet paper, and I just shoplifted some toilet paper. Come find out, if you act like everything's okay and you know what you're doing, that tends to convince people not to question an action. That's exactly what I did. I stole toilet paper. My probation officer had allowed me, finally, a cell phone. He actually pulled me in the office, and he was like, Brett, I can't monitor you. You're going to do it one way or the other if you're going to do it. So go get a cell phone. At least that way I know you got one. I was like, okay. And by this point in time, I had started drinking. Guess I'd made up for all those years where I didn't, and I guess a lot of it was depression too. I suffer from a lot of depression these days. Have for years. And my second wife, Michelle, that just got divorced from, met her through a dating site. And had been talking to her. She reached out to me because I wasn't smiling in my photos. And she asked me, why aren't you smiling? And my response was, that is my happy face. So we started talking, and we agreed to meet on a beach in Destin, Florida. And what happens is we're sitting there on the beach, and about 10 minutes into the conversation, she asked me, she was like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? I look over at her and I was like, well, I just got out of federal prison. And she kind of laughs it off. No. What's the worst thing you've ever done? I just got out of federal prison. And I tell her everything I'd done, who I was, all of that. We ended up having dinner that night. And at the end of dinner, I tell her, I was like, look, I said, I like you. I'd like to continue seeing you. You're going to go home and you're going to look me up. And she's like, no, I'm not. I was like, yeah, you're going to go home and you'll look me up. I said, once you get through that, if you'd like to continue seeing me, I'd like to do that. So she goes home and looks me up. Of course she does. Who doesn't? She goes home and looks me up. And you got to remember, back then, I was not the guy that I am now. There was no, you look me up now and it's solid. You've got a guy that there are stories upon stories of me turning my life around, of me being on the good guy's side, of me stopping, getting 300 fraudsters arrested, or like Emmeline Clark, Noah Beck, getting the feds involved, There's tons upon tons of stories about this former criminal who turned his life around. Back then, that wasn't the case. There was only the crime and just me now in front of somebody. So she looks me up and she sees all that. And she had 3 sons. Her oldest, Taylor, he was in the Navy at the point. He was home visiting her that weekend, and she tells him about me. And to her tell it at that point, he was like, well, do you like him? And she was like, yeah, I think I do. And he's like, well, he's served his time. If you like him and he's not committing crime, why not? So she starts to see me. I guess that she knew that I was in trouble. So she, a couple of 3 months into that, maybe longer than that, I was losing my apartment. My roommate turned out he was this horrible, horrible alcoholic. Monster had problems. My little cat, because I would leave and I guess he would play really rough with Monster. And Monster got to the point where I was the only person that could handle him. He would like to bite or scratch and stuff like that. And he got to where I was really the only person that could handle the little guy. And I loved the hell out of him. I truly did. I knew he had those problems. My roommate, like I said, he was a horrible alcoholic. I would leave for the weekend to go stay with Michelle. She had 2 boys at the house with her. They were young, 7, 8, and then the older one was like 14. And I'd come back to Panama City at the end of the weekend, and those big, like 50-gallon trash cans, one of those would be full, and I mean full of beer cans. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. Michelle must have known I was in trouble, so she offers to let me move in with her. And I do, and the thing is Michelle was the first healthy person that I'd ever dated in my life. And I recognized that. I knew that. And it was important to me because I knew that I needed that. Ultimately, we get married. What happened was I was able to get a job. The only job I could get was pushing a lawnmower, and the guy had to think about that. And I worked my ass off. It got to the point where Dustin literally offered me, to become partners in his landscaping company. I worked my ass off. I got to where I was very good at it because that's what I do. I mean, when I'm really working at something, I bust my ass, absolutely busted. And he recognized that. And he's like, hey, if you want to do this with me, I'll make you partners. And I didn't. I had it in my head that I was going to be this big cyber guy, speaker, consultant. Yeah. And I ended up going back to jail, quit his job and couldn't find another one. I thought I'd found another one, but it turned out I didn't. So didn't have any work. And Michelle was literally the only one working. I'm sitting there going, shit, I got to do something. I'm not worth shit in this relationship. So figured I could bring food in the house. So I start with stolen credit cards, ordering food. And like I said, when you steal food, what do you steal? Well, you steal steaks and crab legs. That's what you steal. And that's exactly what I stole. I get caught doing that. Go back to prison for 10 months. At my sentencing, the only people in that room on that, I had the judge, probation officer, prosecutor, a couple of U.S. Marshals, me and Michelle. Michelle stands up and she tells the judge, and I'd been with her for a minute at that point. She didn't know what I was doing either. She tells the judge that I'm a better dad to her kids than their actual father is. And by that point, I'm just fucking crying. Prosecutor stands up. We think he's a good guy. We think it's a one-time thing. Prosecutor says that. My probation officer says the same thing. Judge gives me a year. My probation officer, he stands back up and he's like, Your Honor, if you can get Mr. Johnson a year and a day, he can get the good time and he can get back to his family. And the judge amends the sentence right there. So I only have to do 10 months. So I go back to Texas to do those 10 months and find out. That's when I realized that Michelle didn't need me for the bullshit that I could give her. She just wanted me for me. I never had that. Had it with my sister, but in a romantic relationship, I'd never had that. It always been transactional. It always been me showing my love by whatever expensive bullshit I could give you. Because I never felt worthy of doing that myself, of filling that gap. Just didn't think I was worth that. So I had to supplement it with expensive shit. Michelle and I got married. I think we got married, it was 2014. April 11th was the date. It's right the day after my sister's birthday. And initially it was okay, Initially it was okay. She was, I still wasn't able to get a job. And I knew that I'd go so much farther before I started to commit crime. Open up a dark web marketplace. That'd make money. Engage in synthetic fraud. Nobody really knew what it was at that time but me. And I knew the profit potential in both of those. And I was like, well, if nothing else, I can do that bullshit. And at the same time, I didn't want to. I was just so disgusted with everything. I didn't want to, but I was damn well, if it goes so far, I'll cowboy the fuck up. Let's do that. So what happens is I started getting a little desperate. Signed on to LinkedIn, and I started to make myself my own little support, security, and watch group, Tried to contact every single fraud prevention analyst that I could, every single law enforcement officer, and I figured that, hey, if I'm going to be legal, at least these people will be able to look at me and say, yeah, you're doing it, or no, you're a piece of shit. You're just committing crime still. And started to surround myself by all these people. And at the same time, my resume on LinkedIn absolutely told who I was and what I did and everything else. I didn't hide it at all. And I ended up reaching out to this FBI agent. His name was Keith Malarski. He worked out of the Pittsburgh field office, and he was a very famous FBI agent. And the reason he was famous is because he had arrested a shit ton of people that I knew. That's why he was famous. And he was very good at it. He was really the first federal agent or first law enforcement agent in the United States that really started to understand cybercrime and people like us who were committing those crimes and the motivations and what we did and things like that. He was really the first agent that really got it. So I reached out to him, and I told him, I was like, hey, man, I respect every single thing you did. I think you did a great job. By the way, I'd like to be legal. And that man responded to me in about 2 hours. He basically validated me as a person. He's like, hey, he's like, you're that guy. He said, you can absolutely help people who need help. Your story, your knowledge, your insights. No one's got that same ability as you've got. So he validated me. He basically informed me that I could choose a different path and be successful, be something, not be a degenerate, help instead of hurt, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And about the same time that happened, this woman by the name of Carice Hendrick, she was in the fraud prevention industry. She was known. She reaches out to me because she was organizing a conference, and she saw my profile on LinkedIn, and she was like, Jesus Christ, either this guy's full of shit or this guy, I need to talk to him. So she reaches out, and we had a conversation over about, 4 months or more about her wanting to bring me into this conference to keynote it. And she's asking, have you ever spoke anywhere before? I'm like, oh, all over the place. I hadn't given one speech at all. Was just bullshitting. Figured I could pull it off, you know? And she doesn't pull the trigger. She doesn't bring me in. She gets me on the phone one day, and Keith had given her references. I told her to contact him, and he had evidently told her something. Yeah, you need to talk to that dude. So she gets me back on the phone, I guess 4 or 6 months later. And she's like, look, Brett, she said, I'd love to bring you in. She said, the problem is I'm scared because the conference has all these merchants. I'm scared you'll associate with them, find out what their weak points are, and then victimize them, steal from them. And by that point, I'm already kind of fed up, and I get mad. I'm like, Carice, I don't need to go to your conference and learn anything to steal whatever I want to steal from any of your merchants. And she gets quiet. And finally, she says, you're right. You don't need to do that. I was like, no, ma'am, I do not. She hires me. That's the first paid speaking engagement that I ever had. And from there, some banks signed me up. Microsoft hires, AARP ultimately brings me in as a fraud ambassador. And today, I do what I do today. My marriage with Michelle, rocky. Because of me. She, I never loved her the way I should have. Just didn't have it in me. I had those demons, the guilt of the people that I had hurt, me so intent on not being remembered as the guy who stole everything that I would wake up of a morning and just work. And I've got that degree of Asperger's syndrome that when I get stuck on a topic, I'm stuck. I will succeed. And that damaged, I think we were together for 11, maybe 12 years. That damaged that to no end. I got to the point that I would walk through the house, and if I'd see something that I had stolen in my previous life, I would pick it up and I would either throw it away or give it away and rebuy it. And just becoming apathetic at the house. I guess because Michelle loved me, and I didn't think that I deserved that. So just becoming apathetic and angry, and cheated on my wife. Did that. Not happy about that, not bragging about that. And it got to the point I just could not be a hypocrite or a liar anymore. Couldn't do that. So I filed for divorce. And left. And the damage that I caused doing that, everything. I tore apart lives, caused a lot of harm, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, hurt people that had only tried to be there for me. That's what I did. Nothing to be proud of whatsoever. And the woman that I cheated with, Lindsay, fell in love with her and wanted that relationship with her. And we have a very strong connection. We truly do. And somewhere along the line between me and her, it got to where we weren't cheating anymore. It became a relationship. And what happens is she married, and she had been wanting out of her marriage for a while. Abusive marriage, a spouse who was verbally, mentally, sometimes physically, emotionally, and financially abusive. She was wanting out of that, and for years she had wanted out of that. For years, they'd gotten to the point that hell, the husband had been sleeping on the couch for a decade plus. It became where they were only together because of the kids that were in the house, and they were arguing every day, and those children were hearing it every day. And Lord knows I know the damage that causes kids because I was in that environment. Of course I was. I'd grown up in an environment like that. I know that the kids pretend not to hear it, but they do. Meanwhile, I'm going through my depression of the harm that I've caused, that I'd caused people that I truly, truly cared about, and who had done nothing but love me and try to help me. And they had, and I had raised, those two boys that I talk about. I had been an outstanding father to them, to the point that the youngest had been wanting to change his last name to Johnson, and the middle one, he had already been saying that he was going to name his kid after me because they respected me that much. They saw the way that I'd worked and turned things around, and how I had that moral compass. They didn't know I was a hypocrite and a liar. And that had eaten at me so much that I had to. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't continue to treat those people like that. So she decides she's finally going to get a divorce too. And what happens is they have this house. They get it up for sale. She had been, mistreated by her spouse for so long, and at the same time, she had been suffering from anxiety from it, from stress, everything else. I mean, horrible anxiety, and she'd been trying to get her mom and her sisters to support her. And there were times it was off and on. She'd been talking about it for so many years that sometimes they would support her, sometimes not. And she had told her middle sister about me, and her middle sister, none of them, they kept saying it was, you got to stay where you are because of the kids. Think of the kids. And I guess that they didn't get the bit where the kids, the kids had never seen what a loving relationship is supposed to look like. And they'd always, they'd gotten to the point because of the arguments that the kids were scared to ask for anything. They would save up what money they could. And if they went to the grocery store and wanted candy, they would, Mom, I've got, I can help pay for it. They were always worried about that because, the dad was always bitching about money. The dad got to the point where over the last year and a half where he would bring his paycheck in and he wouldn't deposit it in the account so that Lindsay couldn't go out and buy any food for the kids. And Lindsay had gotten this job with the intent of saving the money to leave and divorce. But what happened is as soon as she got that job, the husband cuts off financial stuff. So all the money that's coming in, she has to spend. If the kids need clothes, she has to do that. If the kids need to go anywhere or anything else like it, she has to spend that because he won't. So she's not able to do a whole lot. But what finally happens is that the house, they agree to sell that, and she realizes, hey, been married for 18 years to this asshole. Half of that money's mine. And she can't keep her mouth quiet because she's been subjected to this for a minute. And she had told her middle sister about me. So she's preparing to leave. And this time she means it. She'd been saying it for years to her family and to him. But this time she means it. And her mom is one of these people that I don't know how that happens. But her mom was one of these people that, hey, whatever I say, you do, even if you're 40. And Lindsay largely respected that. Like Lindsay had been wanting to get a little chihuahua like Pookie, and had sent her mom a picture of it. And her mom was like, no, don't get that. So instead of paying, $300 for a little Pookie, guy, she goes and gets this little Malta York or whatever it is, $2,300, because that's what the mom, don't get it. Don't get this other one. Get this good dog. And it is. It's a good pup. They both are. I wouldn't take the world for a little Pookie. And what happens is as they realize that everything's coming to a close, that Lindsay's actually going to do it. The sister, Lindsay, goes to have her first lawyer's appointment, file for divorce. Meanwhile, her sister, behind her back, because, why the hell not? Her sister behind her back calls her other sister, her mom, and then finally her husband, tells him all this shit, starts running around trying to take pictures, tells them everything they know, and it all blows up one night. All blows up. Lindsay went back home to find that her husband had destroyed her iPad. Lindsay had been recording a lot of the abuse over the years on that iPad in the hopes that maybe one day she could divorce and she could show a judge, how mean he was to her and her children. And he had gotten that iPad and destroyed it. So she walks back into the house and she sees that. And she's like, something's going on. Yeah, no shit, something's going on. So she looks at the phone records, and she can literally look at the phone records. You can see where her sister had called her husband, and then everything had went from there. And at the same time, her sister had Lindsay on the phone trying to get her to admit that, she was seeing me and everything else. So it blows up. And the husband, instead of taking things, like a man and just one-to-one with her, what he does is he has her older sister come in and absolutely scream, yell, threaten, terrify Lindsay one night. They take the kids off, ends up doing that. And it becomes a race for who's going to actually file first, right? So I stay up that weekend, and what happens is Lindsay, I'm a fucking idiot. I know she's in trouble there, and I was like, that night, I was like, just leave. Just leave. You can leave the house. Just leave. It's going to be all right. Well, they kept telling her, well, if you leave, we're going to change the locks, and we'll get you for abandonment. And they couldn't. Literally, legally, they couldn't do that because that's not what abandonment is. And I was telling her that, and a lawyer had told her that and everything else. But the problem is when you're emotional like that and all that shit's happening, you got your sister screaming and literally screaming and threatening you. It meant something. She bought into that. So she stays in the house, and they're lambasting her. And finally the sister leaves, and you've got her husband and Lindsay's mom in the house. And I'm driving up to Springville to make sure she's okay. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just want to make sure she was all right. So I drive up there, and I'm like, I'm coming to get you. You can come out right now. I'm coming to get you. So I park off their property, and Lindsay's like, come on in. I'm like, you're sure about that? She's like, yeah, it's okay. Come in. I was like, all right. So I walk up, knock on the door. Door opens and her mom's there. And I look at her mom. I was like, hey, how you doing? Just calm as it could possibly be, because when I go through stressful situations, I get extremely calm. It's not until the situation is over that I'll pop into a migraine. So I get extremely calm and walk in, and Lindsay's standing beside her mom, and her husband, Josh, is over on the couch. And I look at him, I was like, what's up, dude? And of course, it was not. I thought, Lindsay said it was all right to come in. I was like, hey, so we're just going to have a conversation, get this shit done with now. No, he stands up, starts screaming, get out of my house. I'm very calm. I was like, dude, I'll leave your house, not a problem. Start to walk out, and as I walk out, he's like, I'll cut your fucking nutsack off. And I look back, I was like, no, dude, you won't. And I just walked back to the car, and as I'm walking back, I was like, I'd look at her, and I was like, you need to come with me. But they had already convinced her at that point. That they would, change locks and get her for abandonment of her kids and everything like that. So she stays there that night. And what happens is we both end up, she and he both independently filed for divorce, basically on the same day. She gets hers filed first. He finds out about it, and his lawyer rushes to file on the same day. And she gets served first. Not a big deal. She gets served first. And then what happens is her paperwork says that she is unfit, negligent, was dating a former criminal who was extremely dangerous, and that she was dangerous as well, and that she was maliciously trying to harm her children. That was the complaint. All that, the only true part in the entire complaint was she was dating a former criminal. Not that I was dangerous or anything, but she was dating me. And they listed a whole bunch of other stuff about her, all untrue. What then happens is Lindsay doesn't leave the house. The lawyer says, yeah, let's stay in the house till we figure out a custody arrangement. She's got a rental by this point, but she's not moved into it. And she stays in the house. And her mom, Lindsay's own mother, comes in the house every day and alienates Lindsay. Tries her best to alienate the children from Lindsay, and only supports and talks to Josh and sleeps with Lindsay's daughter every single night to make sure. And her daughter was 9. Her daughter liked to sleep with mom, and make sure that Lindsay doesn't do that. Meanwhile, they're snickering, talking, laughing, texting between each other, and doing everything they can to try to provoke and intimidate Lindsay. And her own mom looks at Lindsay and says, you just got served. The best thing you can do is just go ahead and leave right now. And, because of who you're with, you're never going to see your children again. So we go and see a lawyer. We hire one for Lindsay, and the lawyer tells her, hey, you had an affair. That does not make you a bad mother. You're not going to lose your children. And I tell him who I am. I'm like, hey, I can come up with 200-300 references, character references, pretty quick. It's not in question as for me being a good guy these days. I'm solid. And he's like, that's not a problem. It's okay. So Lindsay's going back, and they're closing on the house like the 15th of last month is when they closed on it. And by that point, of course, the equity funds are going into an escrow account until the divorce is final. So her mom keeps coming in the house, sleeping with her little girl in her bed every night, twin-size bed, to supposedly protect her from her mother. Lindsay has had enough of that because, it's psychologically and just intimidating. It's depressing. And she can't believe her own mother's doing that. Her mother won't even talk to her in the house, won't say a word. It's all just to Lindsay's husband, the abusive husband that she is talking to and supporting. So Lindsay figures, hey, she's sleeping with my little girl every night. I'm moving into a rental anyway. I'll just take the mattress. Where's she going to fucking sleep? So she does. She does. Her husband comes home, sees the mattress gone. Lindsay's like, I don't want my mom coming back in here. I can't stop her because you're letting her. You guys are doing this to me. So she goes out. Lindsay goes out to get some Advil because she's got a headache. It's like 8 o'clock at night. And while she's gone, her husband literally tells the kids that their grandmother's in trouble. We got to go help her. Gets the youngest girl out of the shower, 8 o'clock at night, school night. Gets her out of the shower. Come with me. That was a lie. What he actually did is he dropped the kids off at the older sisters who had already accosted Lindsay, a week before. Drops them off. Lindsay comes back. Everybody's gone. Has no idea where they are. And of course, she's going, scared. Doesn't know what the hell's happening. About 40 minutes later, her husband rolls in with Lindsay's mom. 2 other people. They walk in and tell her that, hey, here's the way this is going to work. You're either going to leave this house now or you'll never see your kids again. And Lindsay's like, well, you've already taken my kids. And where are they? None of your business where they are. And her mom, same thing, none of your business where they are. So they proceed at that point to start loading up all the furniture and kind of pushing her to the side, loading up all the furniture. And her mom gloating at her, we're not stealing anything. We're just moving. We have to have the house cleared out, just gloating at her. I was actually listening to the call. Lindsay had called me and I was hearing her mom say this, just gloating. So they take the furniture out and I'm down here and 20 miles away. And they've intimidated her, scared her. She doesn't know where her kids are, anything else. And she's like, Brett, I'm scared to stay here tonight. I keep hearing noises. I'm afraid they're going to come back. She actually calls the police while they're there. And the police are like, of course, this is a domestic disturbance. Can't do anything about it. She's like, I don't even know where my kids are. Can't do anything about it. So that's the first night that Lindsay stayed in her rental right there. I came over there and I stayed with her. And the next day, she doesn't know where her kids are. No one will tell her. No one will tell her. None of your business. We're not telling you. We're keeping them safe from you because you're a danger. Her husband comes in. He says, I'm scared of you. So I'm taking the kids. So she's, calling around, trying to find out where they are and everything like that. Meanwhile, her husband locks her out of the house. So she can't get any furniture. Her apartment's not, her house is not furnished at all. And locks her ass out. Meanwhile, they keep going in, taking everything out. And Lindsay's lawyer tells her, hey, she does finally get in through a window. Lindsay's lawyer tells her, just take what you need to survive, and we'll handle it from there. Okay. So she goes in, takes her clothes and stuff like that. And meanwhile, her husband's taking everything in the world. She finally finds out where the kids are. Gets her lawyer banging away, trying to get something done. And finally, she gets a visitation. Because, she could go, and that was a problem. No one had custody of the kids. They hadn't agreed on anything. Her husband just steals the kids and wouldn't tell her where they are or anything. And at that point, she could have shown up at school. check the children out and taking them too. And it could have been this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Who's going to take the kids that day? And our lawyer had said, don't do that. Let's think about the kids. And she don't want to harm the kids either. And it was tearing her apart. So finally, there's a temporary visitation that her husband and his lawyer put forth of, hey, weekend, then you go 9 days and you go to court after that. Okay. So kids come in on the weekend, and what had happened was her husband, her two sisters, and her mom, they had, for the time that Lindsay didn't get to see them, every single day, they had taken those children around to their grandmother, their aunts, and their dad. And they had drilled into those children every single day what a bad mother she was, how she did not want her children to come back, how she would not allow her children to come back into the home, how she was with a very bad guy. And just, one of her sisters had even drove by her rental home to get a picture of me walking into it so that then she could show that to her children and further prove or try to make her children hate her. So those kids come into that house, and I wasn't there. Well, had no intention, because I've never met the children. It was always going to be a very slow introduction. So those kids come into that house, and they don't know what to do. People that they've trusted have told them all this stuff. And it caused a lot of damage to those kids. A lot of damage. Her own sisters and her mom, largely responsible for that. And gloating about it the entire time. So you got a heartbroken mother, finally gets to see her kids. Her middle son, the entire weekend. Hate you, don't want to be here. Who's this? What's going on? You lied. All that. The stuff that should have never been told to a child, told to a child. So, visitation ends. Go to court. And nothing settled at court. Nothing settled. It was an emergency hearing. And the judge is like, well, the kids are likely angry and I don't want to upset them anymore. So, we're going to keep it like it is until we're able to get in again. And the judge was going to have her in like June 3rd. And the husband's lawyer, old guy, which means experienced guy, old guy, he pretends to look, as Lindsay was standing right next to the son of a bitch, he pretends to look at his calendar, literally nothing there. And he tells the judge, oh no, I can't do June 3rd. I got court that day. So it becomes July, mid-July, which means they've got another, 8 weeks-ish of alienating the children and brainwashing them and manipulating them into hating their mom. And meanwhile, this past week, you want to know why I've been late so many times? This past week, I've been busting my ass to make sure, the boys' bedrooms are good, that everything looks nice, that she's, she's got a little money so that she's able to get some pieces of furniture in there. Because, when they first visited, there was simply just some mattresses on the floor. So she wanted to, she's got visitation this weekend, and she wanted to show a happy, loving environment for the kids. So what happens yesterday, she's very forgiving, too forgiving, And what happens yesterday, she went the day before to drop off, her oldest son was graduating 8th grade, which I guess matters, If you're not going to make it past the 8th grade, maybe the 8th grade graduation counts. This kid's going to make it past that. It's like high school graduation. If you're not going to make it past high school, you want to celebrate your high school graduation bigly, So she had bought him some clothes and for the graduation. She wants to drop them off. And of course, the husband's don't come to my house. Leave them at your mother's doorstep. So she takes them over there and leave. And her mom's there, and her mom sees her. And she didn't know that her little daughter, her mom was taking care of her. And her mom tries to initially, I guess, lie out of that. She can't see you right now. She's in the shower. But she wasn't. Of course she wasn't. Her mom had told her to go upstairs. We don't know who that is. Go upstairs. That way you don't see your mom don't see you. Well, Lindsay ended up seeing her. And Lindsay is, like I said, she's very forgiving. So she thinks that, maybe I can, maybe my mom, because she loves her mom, even though her mom despicable in what she did, literally helped her husband steal her kids from her. So she thinks she can, maybe make amends with her mom. So she's talking to her, and yesterday morning she was driving down here. I was driving down here to do my show. Lindsay's talking to her on the phone, and I heard the call, and the first word in, very first word in, you could tell when her mom said hello, it was full of disgust and just exasperation and hatred of her own child. And Lindsay just, tried. Lindsay is like, because she's worried about her kids, is Allie with you today? Is my child with you today? And of course the mom, no, I can't tell you anything like that. It's not my place to tell you. You have to take that up with him. So she had tried to get her mom to agree to go to a water park with the kids, so she could watch over and make sure they were okay, have help with that. And her mom, I guess, had initially agreed. I guess so. Then I get on the show. I'm not going to lie. I get on the show and I talk about it yesterday. That, fake Christians. And what I mean by a fake Christian is, well, adultery is not the only reason for a divorce. You're using the Bible as a shield in order to be vindictive against someone because you disagree with their choices, because you thought you were the voice of God and your child should obey you no matter what the age, and your child finally has the opportunity to get out of an abusive marriage that she's been trying to talk to you about for well over a decade, and you've been hot and cold, mostly cold about it, saying, no, wait until you're older, wait until all the kids leave. They're not being abused at all. Yeah, they hear that, and he's a horrible husband, but don't leave. And your parent becomes vindictive about it and uses the Bible as a shield to try to support it. And no, it doesn't. It doesn't. So I mentioned that on the show. I told the truth. I simply told the truth. Hypocrites and all of that. And of course, we got in an argument. Of course, we did, because what happens is like I said, I've got that degree of Asperger's syndrome. I get stuck on a topic and I can't get off of it. I had a friend reach out about Noah back. And before that, it was the divorce. And, just because every single thing that was going on, my business starts to slide, because of the divorce. And then because I want to get justice for Emmeline Clark. I'm intent on that. And at the same time, we've got this going on with Lindsay. So I've not been able to go out and farm for that business I usually have. So we get an argument over that. Basically my fault. Of course it is. But just trying to make sure she's all right. So that's the story. That's where I am today. She and me and her arguing. Mostly my fault. Her stressed. So it's the stress of both of us that's causing this argument today. And, fear of what today's going to bring when she sees her kids. How much have they continued to brainwash her? She told me that she went the other night to that graduation and her own children wouldn't even look at her. Didn't want to be around her. So they finally warmed up, but it took a while. Yeah, we both did wrong. I won't deny that. But I don't see how any of that justifies any of the rest after that at all. I told you guys that I would tell you what was going on, and you deserve to know. I am not, by any stretch of the imagination, I am not a perfect individual. I'm not. I'm not proud of it. I don't celebrate it. I'm sorry that it happened. I do love Lindsay to no end. And just, I'm sorry for the harm that I caused, and I know that she is too. That doesn't make you a bad mom. And because you're now seeing or dating or in love with a former criminal, it doesn't mean that, it's dangerous, especially if that guy is absolutely known for turning his life around now and helping people, not hurting. But that's what's going on. I wanted you guys to, I didn't even know I was going to talk about all this. I know she and I were arguing horribly yesterday and today. Like I said, mostly my fault. Arguing horribly. And I know I wanted to talk about something. I just didn't know today was the day I was going to get it all out. But I knew it had to come. I wanted to talk about the pedophiles of Eastern Kentucky and all that stuff, the regular show. But I had to confess, I guess. You can't tell other people to do that, Brett, if you can't do that yourself. My cat yesterday, little monster, we ended up losing him one night. I had moved in with Michelle. And that little guy, he got outside. I spent, probably 2 weeks just walking through the neighborhood looking for the little guy, calling shelters and everything else. And then finally had to just accept that the little guy probably, got killed by a dog or a coyote or something like that in Florida. And Michelle took me and we ended up getting Blakely. Blakely she was like 9 months old at that point in time. Furry cat, really, really just a great friend. And that little cat was completely attached to me. Completely attached. It got so bad that little Blakely got out one night. The one time in her life she got out, she got pregnant. And comes back in and, it took all of us a minute to realize, hey, she's going to have a litter of kittens. Well, what happens is that cat was so attached to me that when she has her litter, I was down, I think, in Destin at that point. I have to drive back to Crestview. And Blakely would not go and take care of her kittens unless I laid there with her while she nursed them. And that's what happened. And Michelle at that point had this big old pit bull. And we were scared that maybe the pit might try to kill the little kittens. Well, Blakely moves those damn kittens as she's nursing them. She moves every single one of them to this pit bull's bed. And the pit bull lays there with her and all those kittens. And just that was it, And I had Blakely for many years. I get I file for divorce. I leave my cat there. And last night, I guess the little cat had gotten to the point that she was incontinent, hard to move. It's old, dying. And Michelle messaged me that they had to put her down yesterday. And the thing is that I was busy I was busy making sure that that the house, because Lindsay had that visit today, with her children for the next couple of days. I was busy just making sure that doing everything I could to make sure that that home was okay for those children, and I wasn't there for to see my little cat being put down. So I don't know if I should have been there or not. I think maybe I don't know. I definitely wanted to see the little thing out, because I was her person, and she was my little friend. But I was busy making sure that that hopefully these children would be able to go into their mom's home and maybe not be as mad at her, and maybe they could understand that their mom loves them and misses them, and didn't want it to go like that, and that became more important than me being with that little cat when it got put down. So, a lot of guilt, a lot of regret, a lot of stuff going on. Not your usual show today. I'm going to check the comments because I've not looked at them since I said good morning to the first 2 or 3 people that came on. And we'll do a show tomorrow. Talk about more. I wanted you guys to know what was going on. I mean, me getting divorced, that was not Michelle's fault whatsoever. I gave her, a lot of guilt. I didn't want to continue to be a liar or a hypocrite. Something wrong with doing somebody like that. And she did nothing to deserve that treatment from me whatsoever. I gave her, as best I could, I gave her the home, but she's got to sell that. But she'll walk away with a lot of equity money from it. Gave her all the furniture, gave her everything that I possibly could. I took very little stuff out of the house, and trying now to get back into business so that to support not only me but help Lindsay out and help my ex-wife out, because I think that I still owe her, because again she did nothing to deserve any of that, and I don't think that Lindsay did anything to deserve the way that her parent and sisters have worked to destroy her relationship with her kids either. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just know that this show promises to tell the truth, regardless of who the truth hits. It promises to tell the truth. We do the right damn thing regardless of consequence, regardless of who it hurts, who it angers, regardless if it's the host that has to tell the truth on himself. That's what we do. That's exactly what we do. And I believe in that. I truly do. I believe in that. Sometimes I fail. I don't think I'm failing today. It doesn't feel good what I'm doing, but I think that it's something that had to be done. Is what I think. So we'll check the comments, guys. I don't know what we're saying. I meant to talk about some politics and whatever else is on the show and the listening there. I meant to do all that, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. All right. Sandra Reed, good morning. Ricky Turner, good morning. Jackie, good morning. Good morning, Kevin Hawthorne from Lakeland, Florida. Good morning. Howard Sumner, man, I love you. Good morning to you. Francis Everidge, you're absolutely right. It takes two people to argue. You're truly right on that. Ricky Turner, good morning. Mia Messer, good morning. Anthony Joseph, good morning. Brenda, yeah, I got your comment as well on that YouTube, and I appreciate you for saying that about the show. I truly do. Thank you. Good morning from Hyden, Kentucky. Gail Turner. Deborah Noble Brown, my sister. Good morning to you. I hope you're doing all right. Truly do. Linda Dixon Root, we can tell you care about our community to protect them from toxic, sick individuals. I do. It's weird with me. It's really weird with me. I used to, when I was a criminal, I've told you the truth, and really you guys need to understand that. It's not just me as a criminal. It's Michael Campbell. It's whatever criminals out there. I didn't care anything at all about my victims at all. I didn't give a damn. What I cared about was me. That's what I cared about. And that's every criminal that's out there. You don't care about your victims. You care about yourself. That's why you do that. That's why you victimize other people. It wasn't until I got on the good guy's side that I started to get this empathy and understand, the harm caused to victims. And like Noah Back, for example, I was around pedophiles in prison. I knew what they were. I knew the mentality. But it wasn't until, I started doing this show that we're doing like we're doing now. And I having people talk to me about the damage done, like Wanda Pollard, talking to me about that. And all these other people who have reached out and victims of rape, sexual assaults, all that. And that you start to really understand the damage done to those victims. There's a reason, instead of me saying sodomy past couple of days in regards to Charles Cornett, there's a reason that I say, raped in the mouth or fucked up the ass. Because to me, it's important to try to drive home exactly what was done to those victims. That's just the physical, the mental and emotional components of those types of attacks can't be overstated, the harm. And it wasn't until I started to talk to people that had been victimized like that I started to really understand that. And to this day, I can't understand why people would do that to a child. I can't. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to stop talking about child predators or corrupt people who help facilitate that type of environment. I'm not about to stop that. It's something that now has become very important. I mean, it was important to me before, but it wasn't until I was asked to come in, I started to see and feel and talk to people who had experienced these types of attacks. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere. We're absolutely, this is always going to be something that I'm doing, is trying to help, communities and kids. Yeah. Good morning. We started with the Brett Johnson Show. Thank you so much for saying that. The Stay Hot podcast. Dorothy Turner, good morning from my suite at the ARH in Hazard, Kentucky. Dorothy, I hope you're okay. I truly do. Michael Semister, sorry about your cat. I am too, man. Let's call a spade, a moron, a moron. Trump is a nut. And before anyone calls me a liberal, I'm not. I'm somebody not afraid to say Trump is not for anybody but Trump. This, 100%. I've been a registered Republican all my life. And, I'm not, I don't see anything wrong with liberal or conservative, ideas. I think that both parties have good ideas and both parties have very fucked up ideas. Trump is only for Trump. Did you not see that shit about the IRS? He's got it where none of himself nor any of his family ever will be audited by the IRS. So, that makes crime legal now. And I understand that bleeds down. People see the president of the United States get away with his cryptocurrency scheme or his, his cell phone scheme or his university scheme or, the way they pump and dump stocks based on what he says every single day and the prediction markets and one thing after another. And then the IRS thing, you see that, and it absolutely signals to people on the street. If the president can do this shit, why can't we? Except they get prosecuted for it, whereas the president will not be. That was not what the office of the president was ever supposed to be. It's supposed to be that figurehead. You're supposed to help and not hurt. But when you get somebody in that position that absolutely intends to profit and hurt, they can absolutely use that position of power to do so. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And I don't care. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. That's simply what's going on right now. Simply what's going on. You may have supported the man in the past, and maybe he's done some good things. I'll grant you, back in his first term, he shut down the border, and there was no methamphetamine coming up from Mexico. You had to shake and bake and cook that bullshit at home. And then when Biden came in, you had all that shit open back up all of a sudden. Now, it's a fact. That's a fact. That's not me pulling that out of my ass. That's FBI agents and hearing their experience and then that position of knowledge, sharing that with me. I don't know what it is now. I don't. I know that Trump with El Chapo, he allowed a lot of the family members, he gave them asylum in the United States. Probably because they was telling on everyone. But I also know those cartel members, they don't put up with that bullshit. So while those people are in the United States, I would expect at some time the cartel to cross over the border violently and send a message. I would expect that because that's what they do. Deborah Noble Brown. I'm going to close this out here very shortly. I talked to a scammer once. He thought I was weak because I was a widow. I would say things that showed strength, and the scammer was so reactive. He got into his feelings and would get so mad. He was pretending to be a country music star. I wouldn't stop until he sent me a picture. His foot was supposed to be hurt. The country music star was Caucasian. The scammer's foot was jet black. Well, maybe it was, gangreenish. My guess is he was from Nigeria. Huge red flag, poor use of English language. And I'll tell you what, tomorrow we'll talk about some of those romance and scams and how that works, because it's a really interesting thing what's going on. You've got a lot of wealth and money that's exiting the United States from those types of schemes. And it's so much that it is actually making it is damaging the economy. It truly is. Dorothy Turner, good morning. What else we got? Raymond Slover, good morning, Brett. Good morning to you too, Raymond. Gail Cornick, good morning. Scroll on down here. Deborah's on a roll today. Jesus loves children. I assure you he was with you. It takes so long because he has a big purpose for your life and his timing has arrived. You have compassion, high intelligence, altruism, and resilience, among other high-level character traits. It takes years of preparation to get there. Your life of crime is what has prepared you to fight crime for a community where similar experiences are prevalent and you relate to people who are highly stigmatized. I appreciate that. I do. I truly appreciate that. Thank you. Scroll on down. Wanda Pollard, my heart breaks for the childhood that you never had. My heart breaks for the childhood that you never had. There's so many of us out there like this, and they wonder why this world is fucked up. I could not say that better myself, Miss Pollard. Thank you. That's worth remembering right here. Thank you so much. Go on down. Deborah again. Well, me, I appreciate that. Bless your heart, but look at you now. You are a good man. I'm trying to be a better person. You know, as I let everyone know today, I'm not always a perfect person at all. Madison, you have been through so much, but I want you to know you are a really good person. Madison, you are as well. You truly are. And I know what it's like having depression. I have it too. So I hope that gets better for you. You are in my prayers for that because it's an awful thing to have. I truly appreciate you, Madison. Truly, thank you. And you're right. He could have killed you and claimed self-defense. He and mom were 2 against 1. Then they would have told her to uphold the husband, and she should have. Please don't put yourself in another situation like that. And I got out of that situation, but I didn't know I was walking into it. But like an idiot, I did, and I'm glad I was there to support Lindsay. But that's what happened. Lindsay, her children, and you are in her prayers. We love you, Brett. Stay strong. I appreciate that. We already kind of had figured it out. You said enough that we knew. I know. But, sometimes, even though it may be signal and the flags are there, that pieces are there, you still got to come out and say it. You still got to come out and say it. It's not right to have, say enough that people know. At some point, you got to just say it, or what kind of piece of shit are you? You can get up here and talk about people not being truthful, and you're not being truthful yourself. That's a problem, and I'm not going to be that hypocrite like that. All right, I'm not going to do that. Who's making sure Brett is all right? Pookie is. And Pookie wanted to come with me today. He'll be here this evening. Peggy, I appreciate that. We're all family here. We're all here for you as you have been here for us. And love for you and your friend. I appreciate that truly. Melinda, I'm having to replay this. Sorry about your cat, and I can't imagine what Lindsay is dealing with. Sometimes family can do you the worst, and that is true. They sometimes can. Life is so hard at times, Brett, but God has this for you and Lindsay. Her family is not doing the right thing, and only the kids will suffer. Your kitty will always be with you in your heart. We love you and pray for you. Thank you, truly. Roger Begley, brother, I was wondering where you were. Good morning to you as well. Gordon Cody, Brett, it sounds like you needed to get some things off your chest. It's a good thing for you to do that. And hey, I know this show's supposed to be about Eastern Kentucky and helping and everything there, but yeah, I guess I needed to get that off my chest. I guess I needed to. And we'll end it with, is the cavalry coming? It's still me. Sheriff solicited the FBI and tried to turn me into a felon on the run, 5 inches shorter than me. Thursday, they got a new lie to try and lock me up. We'll talk more about that, my friend. Wanda, I appreciate you. You'll always be our family. I truly appreciate you. That means a lot. Prayers for you, Lindsay. All right, guys. I've been on a minute. I love you guys. Truly. I'll be back tomorrow. On time tomorrow, because I'm staying here tonight. On time tomorrow. We'll hit more, Eastern Kentucky things tomorrow. You guys are my family. And like I said, I got to tell the truth, man. Got to tell the truth. You can't be on a show about the truth and not tell the truth. So there we go. You know, I love you. Truly, truly. We'll be back and get some shit done. All right. You guys have an outstanding weekend. Truly have an outstanding weekend. If you have kids, you know, take a moment to if you have kids, take a moment to tell them you love them, let them know. A lot of people don't like to say I love you, but it's a good thing to say and get in the habit of. You know, they may know you love them, but tell them. Give them a hug, even though they may be too old to not like it. Give them a hug, let them know that you care about them, love them. See if they're okay. They may be going through some shit you don't even know about. So see if they're okay. All right. Have a great weekend. I'll be back tomorrow. We are Eastern Kentucky, and we're a proud people. We stand tall, even when sometimes it's difficult. And even sometimes we may be the only ones standing. We do stand tall. We do the right thing. You know, we look around us and see everything that's going on, and we have had enough. We have had enough. I love you guys, truly. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, just do the right damn thing. Take care.